We're good to go. Now, I'm gonna pre-warn everybody. I know this is a feral talk, but I may have been looking at some Boomkin stuff earlier. So I'm gonna quickly skip past this.
You sicken me.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm out. I'm out.
Okay, this is the new updated tree. Right, perfect. Okay, right. So welcome in, everyone. We are here on a Feral Druid kind of talk. I'm going to give everyone just a quick chance just to kind of say a quick word about themselves, just so you guys know for reference who everybody is. But starting with you, Guilty, then Snoopy, then Buff, do you just want to say a quick word? And as well, where people can find you as well. If you got Twitter or Twitch or anything like that, feel free to shout it out now. And we'll link it in the chat as well. My mods will.
I'm assuming most people know who I am. I'm Guilty as. I write the Wowhead Guide for Feral. I play Feral in primarily Mythic Raids. But I'm interested in a variety of content. Yeah. Find me at Wowhead.
Awesome. What about you, Snoopy?
I do Feral PP, Arena mainly, and I stream on Twitch and make videos on YouTube. And it's just Snoopy on both.
Dope. And BUFFME, hit us with it, Chief.
Yes, I'm BUFFME. I'm a Theorycrafter, former Hall of Fame raider, and the inventor of owl weaving.
Yeah, probably don't lead with that one,
was
I
that
guess.
You?
Yeah, that was him. That was him, Snoopy.
I didn't know that. That's kind of cool.
You
Thanks,
probably
mate.
shouldn't tell people.
Nah, I need that.
Right, perfect. Okay, so chat, that's who everybody is. Now, we're going to spend about an hour-ish here just talking through Feral, the current state of it in Dragonflight. I don't think we should really even take any time at all talking about it in Shadowlands, because we know what it was like in Shadowlands. Shadowlands is pretty much over now. We can focus just on Dragonflight. So getting just a general reception for this current state of the tree. Can you guys, like, I'll just come to you to start off, Guilty, but what are your thoughts about this tree right now? I mean, we know that this tree is definitely better than the original tree we got for Feral, but do you feel that this is the better of the two trees that we have had recently? And maybe give some reasons why you're liking it, or, you know, just general stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it's dope. I mean, I'm biased, right? Because some of my suggestions are in there, so... But I definitely think this one is an improvement over the previous one, and it's like a catastrophic, monumental improvement over the first one around. Like, I can't stress how much better it is. I can't stress how much better it's been in Feral in a long time. Like, I think this is the most excited I've been about an iteration of Feral since like MOP. Maybe I'm honestly probably more excited about this than I am early Legion. It looks extremely fun. It seems fairly well-rounded. There's actually a load of what I think are fairly interesting choices to be made in there, and like I think that will be demonstrated later on by BUFFME and me disagreeing about certain talent options. But I think all around this is just a massive improvement. I'm extremely excited to like play with this one itself and further on like see if they do any more iteration on it.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, we can get into whether there'll be more iteration. That could be a curse or a blessing. Snoopy, what about you, my man? How are you feeling about it? Now, keep it in mind, obviously, chat, that Snoopy is more of a PvP-oriented Feral. How are we looking on that end?
So, yeah, the first tree was, like, really depressing. Like, actually, I was going to quit Feral, but I was thinking... my mind went to dark places about the first one. So when we got the new one, I actually like made a few videos too, and also felt like they kind of like listened to, you know, they kind of did what made sense to do. For example, like Tigers Free in the first one, you had to spend 3 extra points to make Fury do what it does, restore 50 energy. So like just stuff like that, you know, got fixed. I think you know, for PP having BT and Frenzy, for example, is, you know, something you don't have in the live game. You can have BT, Frenzy, and Moment. You know, the bottom 3 row. You have all of them at the same time. And yeah, overall, I think the Feral tree is very good for PP as well. It's not perfect. There's like some things I would still change. But yeah, compared to the first one, it's such a big improvement. It's crazy. But the first one was so bad that it doesn't take much to improve a lot from that. But yeah.
Yeah, I don't even want to
this one's
spend
good.
time talking about the original tree because
Yeah.
I just don't think there's
It's in the
even
past.
any point, right? Like, let's just move on from it because this is
Yeah.
what we need to like focus on. Yeah, absolutely. But like, 100% agree. This is fantastic. And what about you, Buff? How are you feeling about it?
Basically the same opinion as already shared. The first one, I was probably one of the few people who had some positive feelings about the first one as well. But the second and third versions were just so much better and basically feel like talent trees, whereas the first one basically wasn't a talent tree at all, but just like a bare bones skeleton. So yeah, the new ones are absolutely amazing. I love the second iteration, even though that was in some ways kind of set in stone for what you would pick in single target and AoE. And the current iteration has so much variation that you can try, and it has to be like worked out, simmed and stuff. Like there are so many open points right now that you can spend on different talents. It's literally one of the best talent trees in the game right now.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are coming into my stream. I'm sure they're coming into yours as well, Snoopy and like Guilty Buff. I'm sure people are in the Discord in the Dream Grove and going, "Hey, how come you took this talent and like why didn't you take that talent?" And for me, that is the most beautiful part about this talent tree is there's a justification to say, well, because for this I'm thinking of this scenario, that scenario to happen, and it really there's a reason to still desire things that you can't take, but still be happy with the build that you have. And I think that, like you're saying, Buff, I agree. I think this is one of the best talent trees in the game. And the biggest frustration for me right now with the Feral tree in general and Feral in beta, the biggest frustration for me is that more people that don't play Feral aren't looking at this tree and going, holy shit, that is so good. And it's kind of like makes me sad that there aren't more people that are aware of how good it is, because nobody's talking about it, and it just feels like it's a really good tree. But what do you guys then think? And this, I won't come to you individually, just feel free to jump in and we can have more of an open discussion here, but you know, don't try and all talk at the same time. But what do you guys then think are kind of some of the real big strengths and weaknesses? Like, what do we, because I think the biggest thing from this talk that we should be taking is saying, hey, Feral Druid developer, really great job. We love what you're doing. This is how to put that last couple % of effort in to really perfect it. So what are you guys really enjoying about the tree? And what do you think needs to either move position, get removed, get altered in some way, nerfed, buffed, whatever? And I'll kind of just throw that one open.
I think it's really close to being great. It's kind of hard to give a lot of feedback about what should be like changed, though I do think there are a couple of small things. The big thing at the moment is tuning and like what the final inter-spec tuning of ability is going to be, because that will determine a lot of like, is something too strong, is something too weak, could something be moved a little to make it feel a bit better. So I think there's a couple of like noticeable examples. One thing I do want to talk about quickly is like Frantic Momentum. So I know Frantic Momentum might not be the strongest talent at the moment, but I've seen a lot of people with the viewpoint. So Frantic Momentum is the one above Incarnation/Convoke. So it gives you a chance to get haste based on the number of common points you spend on the finisher. So mechanically, I've seen a lot of comments about how that's going to be bad because haste is bad for Feral. And one thing I just want to point out quickly is that we don't know what stat weights are going to be like. We don't know what stats are going to be good. It could very well be that haste is going to be the best stat now. Like, that's not unlikely.
100%, yeah.
So I think it's very likely that talent might be too weak. And I know BUFFME thinks it's too weak. It probably is. It's averaging out to like around 3% haste in my dungeons, which is around what you'd expect it to be, which is probably too weak for 2 points. But like, it's not weak because it gives haste. It might just be too weak because the numbers are small. I just want that to be something people think about.
Yeah, that's my biggest issue with it. Because if you want to take Convoke and the Mini-Voke extension, you have to spend 5 points. One is useless in terms of damage, which is another kind of issue with the tree, which we can get into later. But you have to take one useless talent, 2 very weak talent points with the haste talent, and then you get the Convoke base ability plus a 5th point for the mini Vogue ability, and 5 points is like a sixth of all of your talent points for one ability, and that's a hefty price, and that basically kills Convoke in its with the current talent tuning in all forms of content, I believe. But I hope it's not true. I hope I'm wrong on that end, because I love Convoke to death, but yeah, it's rough. For me, the biggest issue is maybe not even the tuning of that haste talent, but even just the pathing, because you have to go down this 5-point route to get Convoke, and there's no other option. There's also no option to deviate from the middle path to the outside paths, besides Swarm and Soul of the Forest. So for me, it's kind of like pathing is an issue that creates other issues down the line, and also makes things like Survival Instinct either mandatory if Convoke is too strong, or you would skip it in most content if Convoke's too weak.
I mean, are you ever gonna skip survival? I feel like that's seems like a pretty big I mean, it's like a massive cooldown for us, you know?
I mean, you wouldn't in PvP, right? So Snoopy's gonna say no, but I think there's certainly some raid content where you wouldn't click on that. If you didn't have to click on it, there's some times when you wouldn't click on it. Maybe not for progress, maybe, but it's definitely something you'd think about.
Yeah, like on prog, maybe you're forced into taking it, but as soon as, you know, and on some of those earlier bosses, you can probably bypass it because you can get a lot of the defensive stuff and healing from the class tree as well. Yeah, I agree. I do think Convoke is really expensive to get to, but just generally speaking, we have these 2-point... Like, I think that what they've done is they've given us a lot of room for connections, but then the trade-off is that you have these 2-point talents that you're going to have to take, but Convoke is just in a very awkward spot to try and grab. But what about you, Snoopy? Any thoughts for you about the tree generally, like problems or strengths that you like about it?
Like the strengths, you get a lot. Like you get pretty much everything I want. You know, lunar inspiration is like a pretty big. Like some people love it, some people don't like it, because you know once you have lunar, it kind of changes your whole playstyle to where you're gonna be kiting a lot more and like just spam moonfire to get 5 comp points. Personally, I kind of prefer like not having lunar. I think it makes Feral more fun in PP, where you kind of have to go in to generate comp points. And the build I made without lunar is very, very nice. I still feel like I'm missing like a little bit of like 1 or 2 points to kind of get a build that I'm very satisfied with. So like I'll probably change some placements. The thing about changing, like if I make a suggestion, it might like not be good for PvP or for PvE rather. But I feel like going through sudden ambush to get infected wounds feels like quite bad from a PP perspective, because like infected wounds is pretty much something you have to take, and without infected wounds, your Wicked Claws talent, PP talent, doesn't work. The healing reduction. It's like
right. Is sudden ambush not going to be good for you guys in PvP? Even just to like throw in a shred rather than stun rake or something? It's
not that it's bad, but you can get like a lot more high value stuff. Like let's say if you swap the placement on infected wounds and sudden ambush, then you can kind of I like just that small change, at least for or swap with something else too, but that would kind of open up, because from my testing so far, I feel like it's not about just wanting everything, but it's like getting a build that you're satisfied with. Of course, I still want more stuff, but I feel like we're kind of lacking like 1 or 2 points in this kind of PP build that'd be nice. And also, some people do want lunar. Like the lunar fanatics want to swap lunar with something else, where you're, because right now to get lunar, got to go through Primaraph, double rake, which it's kind of not very good. Like, I mean, you got to go through two things that pretty much brings no value in PP.
Yeah, I'll be honest, and Buffy and Guilty jump in on this one as well. I feel like the biggest problems for me with this tree are actually PvP based. Like, I feel like PvP, it's kind of hard to make something like perfect, you know what I mean? You can still make something like decent, but you're still kind of like, oh, it's a bit awkward with some of these placements.
Yeah.
Whereas PvE, I feel like we're actually pretty solid. Like, you can make it work in pretty much every type of scenario, from what I've been seeing. Would you guys agree with that?
I don't just like preface one thing. Like, I think it's very good in PP. Like, it's looking strong, and I'm very happy with it. But yeah, so it is looking good.
Okay.
Like, I don't want to come off as it's looking bad, because it's good. Yeah.
Can I ask you as well, Subi? Have you been using Talent Tree Manager? Like, do you have an import that I can look at your build on whilst we're like, talking?
I do have it. I can also send you. Wait, yeah.
If you send me a thing, is you can't DM me on Discord because it'll jank up the whole thing that we got going on. I think. Anyway, hold on.
How have you set this up like this, man?
Dude, leave me alone. I'm this thing is all held together by like sticks and glue, okay? I'm making it work. Look, don't worry about it. We can check it out. Or you can just tell me what to take right now if you want to.
I also like send you, oh yeah, okay, sure, yeah. Okay, so should we build like my build now?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I'm sorry to all the PV ferals, but PP is important as well.
Yeah.
It's fine. Alright, so like the build I'm making right now, so you go like get clarity. I mean, yeah, open the clarity. And then you go for Predator.
Yeah.
Predator's quite nice, you know, because it does extend rip, so that's value PP. And then Merciless Strikes on the left there. And then you get double Tireless Energy. Get Sabertooth. And also Pouncing Strikes.
Okay.
Berserk.
Yeah.
Then double Sudden Ambush into Infected Wounds.
Okay.
Moment of Clarity. Predatory Swiftness. And then the Tiger's Tenacity.
Okay.
Into Blood Talons. Oh wait, okay. I guess grab Wall first. Wall first, so we can get.
We have to spend 5 points. Yeah.
Yeah, Wall. Taste for Blood. And Dreadful Bleeding.
And Frenzy?
And then Slash. I've been going Slash. This is actually like one of the things, like, I feel like we should be able to get Frenzy and
which Slash? Brutal Slash or Wild Slash?
Brutal Slash, yeah.
Right.
Brutal Slash. Yep. Okay, and then we can move down. And then you get Blood Talons, you get the double Carnivorous Instincts. Like, this is where we get so much value in PP, because we get, you know, Swarm, Blood Talons, Frenzy. You grab all that stuff. Like, just like right there on the tree, I feel like kind of unleashes Feral like a lot in PP, because, you know, that's quite new, having all that stuff at the same time. And Moment of Clarity. And wait, we still have some more points. Yeah, and then you go Vein Ripper.
Yeah.
So we get Vein Ripper and also Cat Eye. Tune that one. So the Forest and then Circle.
That's the build, yeah? Okay.
Yeah. So we got like Vein Ripper, you know, which extends bleeds by 25%, and then we get Circle that, you know, makes them tick 25% faster. But you end up just having, you know, 25% more damage on your bleeds pretty much. So they're ticking fast, but not ticking off too fast. And yeah, it's kind of the build. So like right here, like if I could just get Frenzy Band as well, that would feel really good. But that's kind of what we can't get right now.
Yeah. The only way you could do it is if you drop Taste for Blood, took Tear Open Wounds, and then you have that extra combo point to go there. But then you'd lose Ferocious, Taste for Blood. But okay, interesting. Okay, good. Worth looking at. I mean, it still looks pretty good. Like you say, it's not. I mean, it's not a bad tree. Nice. I think grabbing like this lower end looks really good for PvP. Okay, so PvP's not in that bad of a state. That's good then, because I was worried that it was like not. You know, everything I've been seeing.
Oh no, it's looking good.
Have you tried?
Convoke might be really good in PP.
Dropping Circle and taking Rip and Tear, I think it's called. Drubbing Circle taking Rip and Tear instead of Vein Ripper, and then you can
Dude,
get your
Rip and
Frenzy.
Tear does like no dam in PP though.
Have you tried it on today's build?
Yeah. Or it's like good in cleave, but like single target though. It's not. It's not all that. I have been trying it a bit, but maybe I was actually like trying a PV build today as well. But yeah, it's like 25% more damage is on your bleeds. It's so big, you know, with the Bloodhound's Rip ticking as well. It's like and then you know you got the 30% more damage on Rake. Like the biggest difference from like Shadowlands to now is that and the Old Tree is a draft of Deep Focus is gone. So you used to be like locked to one target and you had to kind of train one target down. But now the bleeds themselves are buffed, so you can kind of just cleave freely and just put pressure on wherever you want to do it. And it's like with this build, like your bites, because it's Sabertooth Bloodhound, so you can get like, you know, 70, 60k bites in PvP now, and also like the bleed. So it's kind of, so it's feeling really good in that way, where you got big bleeds and big bites.
Okay.
With this kind of build.
All right. Okay, cool.
One thing that probably
Billy.
feels awkward for you guys as well, which I think this is one of my few actual issues with the tree, is that Predatory Swiftness still feels very weird being where it is.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I imagine in PvP you always want to, or at least I know that if I was thinking of PvP, I'd always want to have Predatory Swiftness.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I don't think there's a situation in PvP where I'd be happy not having Predatory Swiftness, which does kind of railroad you a little bit towards that side. And then it feels like there's nothing really equivalent investment on the right-hand side. I do think that Predatory Swiftness probably needs to be... I mean, I think this probably just needs to be a class tree thing.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, in PvP you have to go there anyways. But yeah.
It's one of those talents in our tree where it's basically forced because you always take one of the following talents. So it's I don't know, a tax, some form of tax that you just spend 1 point for a nice utility or whatever. So I'm fine with that. I don't really mind. It's not like Survival Instincts where you
I'd agree.
have
I think
debate about skipping it.
But in PV, like, do you not always want infected wounds or just skip that?
I mean, the slow's kind of meaningless, so it would just be about the rake damage.
30%, which I guess rake is not that big of a deal in PV, maybe, or...
I think it'll depend.
I have it in my cleave build, because I
same.
think rake is still a significant amount in like a real extended cleave fight. But that's one of those scenarios where we would just wait for either testing to see like exact damage breakdowns, because it's fairly simple to calculate if it's worth to take or not. But it's 1 point, and you take the double rake talent, and so it could fit. But that's one of the points that I mentioned earlier, where it's like really open. You could take it, maybe it's not, maybe it's competing with something that's very similar in damage. So it's kind of interesting, because flavor-wise, a talent that buffs rake is cool in my book.
Yeah, I guess because in PP, like, you kind of want that always. So that's a bit like, if they were to move that, I guess you couldn't really just swap with Sun Ambush. Maybe that would be bad for PV. But yeah, from a PP perspective, I feel like the placement on infected wounds, to me, is like one of the most kind of awkward things about the tree.
Yeah, that was something that with the old tree, I looked at it in two ways. Like, I preferred the old tree for infected wounds, but then I look at it, sudden ambush is gonna be like really good, and it actually in a way means that you can get rake buffed and also get infected wounds like really easily. So I can see from maybe the developer's point of view, that actually looks like a good decision. But I think just it's a very heavy investment to get infected wounds. But I mean, like, this is what I want to ask you guys, right? Because we're what, at most 2 months and a bit away from release, right? Like, at most. How much? And it's taken us this long to get like this much work on Feral and these many iterations, and we know that they've still probably got to do the class tree, and we can get onto the class tree. But like, how many more iterations can we really afford to get? And could it just risk potentially making things worse in some way? And like, how perfect. Because for me, a talent tree is perfect when it isn't perfect. You know, like there should always be something more that you want. So how much for you guys are these issues like this isn't a good choice to be made compared to, oh, I would just really like to have that because I would just want to have it.
Yeah.
I don't think these are. I'm trying to think of the way to phrase this. If the tree launched as it is right now, I'd be okay with it. I would prefer some small changes made to it, very small changes. That's fine. I'm not particularly concerned about the person in charge breaking things, because I think that I'm not particularly concerned about the person in charge breaking things, because I think they give a shit about Feral a decent amount. And honestly, some of the things on this that are the way they are probably aren't how I would have done them if I was in charge of designing, and in many cases they're probably in the end better than what I would have done when designing. So I'm happy to just give my feedback and see where they take that.
For sure. And SNUPY, I know you wanted to jump in as well, but really quick, BUFFME, you're not muted, are you? Is there anything you want to jump in with, my guy?
Well,
You just enjoying yourself?
I mean, I agree with most of the stuff Guilty said, and also I couldn't really join the PvP discussion because I'm so bad in PvP
Fair
that
enough.
I once got kicked from a boost that my guild bought because it was so bad. So yeah, I stayed quiet for that one.
Actually, I had the same thing with SNUPY. We were supposed to do like 4 hours of PvP, but he cut it short after about 10 minutes, said he had to go out.
Nah, dude.
He
Dude,
didn't
that's not
have
true.
to go out.
That's not
Yeah.
true.
Kind of like that, but for real. So yeah, no, but I personally would prefer this tree to go live as it is. Like I can't really speak for the infected wounds PvP issue, and I can see that it's there, but from a PvE standpoint, I would love to get this exact tree without any tinkering, without any placement changes. It's really sad to potentially lose Convoke. Whatever, we get enough toys to compensate. The base rotation is much more fun and interactive, so that I don't need Convoke to have fun playing Feral. So for me, I'm happy. Whatever happens, I'm happy.
Yeah, I think I agree. I would just want to see Lunar Inspiration and Protective Growth probably swap places. I think that's the least disruptive, and I think I'd be chill with that. I think the Convoke thing is actually an interesting one, though, because a lot of people actually dislike... Like, Convoke is quite divisive. A lot of people dislike it because it's a AFK, RNG, I'm gambling on Twitch, please don't ban me kind of ability. But some people like it because it's quite thematic and it's, you know, it feels like what a cat would do, whatever the hell that means. So it being quite hard to get, expensive to get, I think is kind of good, because if you really want Convoke, then you can absolutely make it work. But people that dislike it don't feel like they are forced to absolutely have to take it in all content. So I think it's kind of, for me, cool. Like, I can see it being pretty cool in some kind of double clawed, spread, rake, Convoke kind of build, and I'll mess around with that kind of stuff. But I feel like it's cool that it's not really really mandatory. But anything that you guys wanted to comment on in terms of the actual state of the Feral tree, in terms of happiness or dissatisfaction with it? Anything else that you guys wanted to cover that we haven't?
Let me boot up the tree. Let's see. Is there anything else I want to talk about? Obviously, the class tree, I think, is a travesty and needs redesigning.
Yeah, we can talk about that.
Yeah.
So I'm sure we'll talk about that later. Is there anything else I dislike here? No, I think I'm pretty happy with it. I think maybe protective growth. I know they buffed it to 5%, but it's really easy to skip it, and you kind of need Predator Swiftness to combine it. I'm not totally sure how I would address that. But I'd like to see maybe another look at that, because I do think it's fairly interesting.
What if Okay, literally just came to me. What if you combined Predatory and Protective Growth together in one talent and like moved it where Protective Growth is? You'd obviously have to put something else here, but...
And then put Infected Wounds.
And then
there.
put Infected Wounds there?
I mean,
You could do that.
Something like that.
I'd worry that maybe you just end up skipping it all the time if it was where Protective Growth was. But like maybe you could, instead of doing that, you could move Protective Growth into Predator Swiftness, combine them, and put put Infected Wounds where Protective Growth is.
Okay.
Because putting utility off the beaten path is kind of problematic because if you just skip it, right? But if you put damage there, it becomes more of an option. So you could do that potentially. Like that's not an awful solution. Personally, I think that, like ideally, I think Protective Growth moves where Predator Swiftness is, and Predator Swiftness goes into the class tree. But that's dependent on what a class tree
Yeah,
you
that's
work,
probably
so.
the best option. Yeah.
But there are options there. I just think that's maybe something that should be thought about. So I do think Protective Growth is a cool idea. Also, I'd like to see Protective Growth applied to anyone you cast Regrowth on, as opposed to just yourself.
Yeah, 100%.
I think that would be cool.
That would be like that would make that talent good, but also probably really busted. Like a 5% DR on any person permanently would be way too strong. I think.
Oh, then we can
Maybe.
Resto Weave. Yes. BUFFME, start crunching the numbers right now. Get on it.
Stop this. Oh, also, like, owl weaving. This is like a really PvE focused thing, and SNUPY isn't going to give a shit about this, but that's fine. Owl weaving, like, I've heard people say that you just never have time to owl weave on beta, and y'all are just playing a different fucking spec to me or something, because there's so much time to fit in the fucking Sunfire here and there. Especially with it only costing the one, like, well, I guess 2 globals now of Sunfire into cat form. And like it's still slightly better than current owl weaving of going into boomkin form. But that shit needs to be fixed. I ain't about that.
I think it just depends on, like, I think owl weaving, and this is the thing, like, owl weaving is not a concern for me because I'm focused on Mythic Plus, where I'm going to be running Apex. And as soon as you combine Apex with Circle, like, I am never going into boomkin form, or really ever going to be able to throw out
never going to boomkin form anyway because you just press Sunfire. And
well, yeah, you know what I mean. Like, I'm never going to waste that global, but I can see it. I think in raid.
I think you're underthinking this because you're playing Predator in dungeons now, right?
Yep.
Like you're always going to have Predator. Predator puts you back into cat form off GCD.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, you're just going to have a macro for Sunfire, Tiger's Fury, and then you're going to press Sunfire, Tiger's Fury off GCD, and you're going to be owl weaving like that. I'm telling you.
Yeah, but then if that's the case, then that's, like, not even something that my brain even has to worry about, because it's so low effort to do that it's not, I don't even mind, you know? You
are going to lose your goddamn mind doing that, I swear down. Because I've done that with Moonfire.
but you still lose 1 GCD.
You lose 1 GCD, but you will lose that GCD.
Yeah, but Sunfire would have to be stronger than a 30% buffed swipe, so, and giving combo points, so it would have to be significantly stronger than a 30%
Sunfire,
buffed swipe.
But the thing is, you still have time in your rotation not to be like if you press AoE.
Yeah, that's the issue. If you have 1 free GCD, then you can do this. But if you are literally GCD capped in Mythic Plus for whatever reason, like at some target count, then you would totally do that. Sure, yeah. Like owl weaving is like scarily viable without the Moonkin form requirement. Like, just pray that they don't enable Star Search to be casted from casted form.
Please, man, why do you gotta do this to us?
Then we're gonna go hybrid.
Well, if Furor is the thing, then you're gonna be doing some shenanigans where you're gonna be Star Surging, right?
Well, they can't make Star Search castable from in caster form or be like a real Moonkin spell where it costs astral power, because then Furor would be absolutely busted. Like that talent is just so broken off the charts with that change. But to be clear on that note, I personally think that the Druid class tree will be completely reworked, and also the spells in there will be mechanically reworked, so that probably neither Furor or Star Search in its current form will be like that when the game releases. So I'm not sure how Owl Weaving will look like in Dragonflight, but I think it will be moderately strong, like just how it is now.
I do agree that I don't think that Fury is going live as it is, which is
Yeah.
a good thing.
Yeah. I mean,
Hope not.
I know that we all want the tree the class tree to be reworked, and we can if you guys are happy with the conversation on the feral tree, we can maybe move over to the class tree, because I'm aware of time, and there is a massive elephant in the room that we still haven't spoken about yet, so I want to get onto that. But should we jump over to the class tree? You guys all happy with that?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
I am actually really aware of time, so maybe we can kind of speed through the class tree a little bit quicker. But does it just flat out need like a rework? Is there any is there anything where you're like, just one or two tweaks, or does it just need to completely be redone?
No, it
And
needs
so,
a full rework.
how do you afford 4 different specs with 4 different roles, and making a good class tree in that sense?
It's gonna be really hard, but right now it's basically a bit like the first feral tree, where you have 2 3-point talents that are mandatory and kill most of your pathing, so you don't even have a lot of choice to get. Then there's Nature's Vigil, Innovate, Vortex that you definitely need to pick up, Renewal. Like the capstones basically dictate most of your points that you spend. So there's not much choice, and the talents itself are not that fun, but baseline old abilities that you had. So it's really a big miss. But from my point of view, it's like it's just like the first feral tree. It's basically a placeholder that didn't get replaced yet, because they didn't have the manpower to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like this was made by the old guy, right? And then a new guy came in and then reworked the feral tree and stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it was
a-
like a Sith situation, you know?
Yeah.
And all the
But yeah.
first versions of the Druid trees were all like basically first versions. So you
Anakin,
knew
no.
that they were
Don't
the
try it.
first try that they had a talent trees.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think it's...
guys-
Oh, sorry, go on. Yeah, you go
Alright,
ahead,
you can
Steve,
go.
you jump in.
Okay, I was gonna say like one just big problem I find with the Druid tree is just how the pathing works. Like for example, if I want Nature's Vigil in Arena, then I have to go. You have to start on Natural Recovery, which is like halfway up in the tree, and that's the only pathing to get down there. So yeah, like just how far you have to have to commit to get something, I think just feels really bad. So just like the connections throughout the tree just don't feel good to me at all.
Yeah.
What's Natural Recovery?
It's next to Wild Charge, right to.
Oh,
no,
this
wait,
just says
yeah,
new
new
resto passive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in game it says Natural Recovery. Yeah.
Right.
Yes, like,
presets
if you
are
want-
outdated, Psy.
Yeah, okay.
If you want Nature's Vigil, right? Yeah, like you have to start up there to get down to that. I mean, you could start on the boomy stuff, but of course you won't do that as a feral at least, or in arena rather. So yeah, I feel like it leaves you with like little choice, which is just a bad feeling.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same point of view for PvE. Yeah. I feel like there's very little choice in there. I'm 100% convinced it's going to be reworked.
Yeah, same.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
we're
we're
happy
the
to see.
only class besides... In fact, I think Rogue's even been changed. We're the only class now with 3-point talents still in our class tree. So surely that's... like, that just shows that it's got to be changed, right?
Yeah. You would
Yeah,
hope.
it will be.
We'd hope.
I think
Okay.
there's some cool ideas. Yeah. There's some
Go
cool
on,
ideas
Guilty,
in
if you
there,
got some
but-
stuff.
Wait,
Yeah.
you guilty go.
I think there's some okay ideas in there. I think that it's really easy to cheat. So it depends how willing they are to cheat, but there's no reason, for example, that you couldn't just have Feral Affinity, Balance Affinity, Guardian Affinity, Resto Affinity, like halfway down the tree, and just have them give them a chunk of the kit, like how the talents exist now. So you could cheat very heavily and just have 1-pointers for like base kits, as opposed to like the mess they have now with like having to put 4 points for base kits and then not really having options elsewhere.
Yeah, but additionally, if you say it's like cheating, but it's kind of not, because if you separate the tree in like these 4 lanes that you separate by spec, you will never have any form of variation in your builds. Like you will always be kind of locked down in basically 2 lanes that you pick that are most beneficial. So an option, but that's crazily complicated to design, would be to ditch the lane concept completely and have the full tree completely spec agnostic and make it work for every spec. Like it's just cool utility that you could pick independently of what spec you play, and then have the affinities somewhere in there. And that might still be cool.
Yeah.
Anything you wanted to throw in there, SNUPY, as well?
Yeah, or like just about this tree in general. Let's say Hibernate, for example, right? Like Hibernate you have now, and like the end result of this current tree, at least, is a Hibernate is just you're not gonna go through Booming Form to get it, and therefore it's effectively kind of pruned, at least in PvP, where you're never ever going to spec it, and it's not like a huge thing, but it's like fun utility to have, and effectively you just like lose an ability, right? Pretty much. So if like stuff like, and also Cyclone, I know Axton, you might know he's one of the best PP ferals. He made a tweet about Cyclone. Like Cyclone, I feel like it should also.
It's very hard to click on Cyclone.
Yeah, like Cyclone. You know, of course, I'm saying just make stuff baseline, but actually, like, you know, because Cyclone in I think it was in BFA, they made it PP towns, and they give it a baseline now in Shadowlands, and now they're kind of putting it back in the town tree. But I feel like Hibernate especially, but also Cyclone. I don't know how it's for PV, but I think if it was baseline, it would feel better.
I would say,
I mean, the thing is, I don't think it necessarily has to be baseline, but the level of locked off it is, like, because that's the problem. It's so locked off. I understand kind of what they're trying to do with Kick. So the idea with Kick is that they don't want, or they want it to be harder for Balanced Druids and Resto Druids to pick up Kick. So in order to do that, they essentially just lock them off. So you have to waste points in order to get it. But it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to do that with Cyclone, which is like something that has traditionally been all Druid specs. It just feels like they felt they had to make it symmetrical and they weren't sure what to put there, so they put Cyclone there.
Yeah, and I'll be real, like, so maybe not so much in Raid, but Hibernate and Cyclone actually are really, I think, vital to Feral for very niche situational stuff. But there's a lot of situations where you can in Mythic Plus where you can Cyclone a mob to prevent it getting bolstered, or you can Cyclone a mob to stop bursting stacks. Like, say you're at 6 bursting stacks, and if another one goes, you're gonna wipe. You can Cyclone a mob. Not only is it really good, but everyone in your group knows that you're a fucking Chad, because you all have to sit there for 4 seconds and look at the mob, and everybody knows that you are fucking alpha. So Cyclone is really good for that kind of stuff. Also, like in Sanguine, a mob you can if a mob's in Sanguine and it won't move and it's casting and you can't do anything about it because nobody has anything at that point, you can Cyclone it for a few seconds, forget about it, wait till Typhoon is up, then bam, you can slam that. Hibernate, also really good, even now in Season 4 with the bats on Zolgamux. You can Hibernate the bat. There's a few niche situations where Hibernate can really come in and do a good job. So these, like, utility is always useful, and you should always be able to get utility, like any utility that you want on this tree for any spec, because there's going to be situations where you can make it work, and I think it's really important that you get this stuff. But I think you guys are right. Like, I don't really know how they do this tree and accommodate for like a Feral side, a Guardian side, a Resto side, a BUFFME side. It just isn't going to work like that. They need to restructure and rethink it completely and go like, yeah, spec agnostic, as I think you said, BUFFME. And I think that's a good, like, that's the only way they're going to be able to do it, I think.
Yeah.
But quick disclaimer, like I said, like spec agnostic would be a good way, but that's like purely hypothetically speaking. It's not guaranteed that there even is a way to design it agnostically so that it would even make sense. I think it's a huge undertaking to make a good druid class tree, however you want to do it. But one thing's for sure, and that's 3-point nodes have to go. Nobody likes that. They kill trees quicker than anything else.
Right. So
Yes. Also, Fura. Fura has to go. Just I don't want Fura.
Fura
Make
just
it
has
go
to go,
away.
period.
No, I like that talent. I love it.
Shut up.
Right. So
Don't fucking
gentlemen,
talk to me about Fura, BUFFME.
we are low on time, and something that for me that I mean, are you guys cool with the class tree now? Anything else that you wanted to touch on? Are you happy?
I could
Can I
talk
say
about
one
it for
thing?
hours, but I'm down.
Yeah, go on, Snoopy, jump in.
Yasuvik says something too. Like, okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but most classes, their spam to see is not a talent. That might be wrong, but that's what I've. And I think.
I have to check. I don't
I think
think it is for mage. It is for
Yeah.
rogue, right? Rogue has sap on the tree.
Well, I mean, like a cast, like I guess clone, fair, sheep. What else? Like
I don't think poly
Isn't-
is. I don't pay attention to warlocks because they're not people.
I don't know, cause I'm not trying to say like make everything baseline, but I do think the tree would be more interesting if they made the pathing better. Like just make the pathing better, make certain things baseline, replace them with some cool, maybe some new stuff.
Yes.
Like you could, and then just make the pathing better. And I think it's fine even when you have this like 4-section tree. Might not be perfect, but I think it'd be a lot better just with that. Because I feel like it's just lacking some exciting stuff in there, I guess.
Yeah.
There's definitely a lot of space to make stuff baseline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like as trees have gone on alpha, they've had more and more classes with like more shit baseline. I think Druid was one of the first one that came out, and they were extremely conservative with what was baseline. So
Yeah. So all in all, this tree just needs to get reworked. They can add some stuff in. They can make some stuff potentially baseline, or at least make it accessible. I think that the difficulty with Druid is that we have so much utility when you really do consider, from a class perspective, we have a lot of stuff, and I think that it's probably hard for them to like make a tree without any 3-point nodes, and then also make the utility where you can't just absolutely have everything because you have so much stuff. But a big thing for me is, for all of us, it just needs to get reworked. The thing is that I'm looking at, for me, isn't even about the class tree. It's about just uniform stuff when it comes to Druid, and it's really annoying when you play one spec and something works differently to a different spec for absolutely no reason. For example, you can cast Hibernate in cat form as Feral, but you cannot cast Hibernate in cat form as a Resto Druid. And you can Dispel in cat form as Feral, but you cannot Dispel as Resto Druid in cat form. The way that we combat res is really awkward, where it's different. Bear, it costs Rage, but it's instant. BUFFME, they can stay in form, but it's hard cast. Feral, they have to move out of form and hard cast. Like, we need some kind of uniform way in which our utility is usable, because it's really awkward to do all that stuff, and they need to make it uniform, or at least make sense in each form. So that's a big thing for me, like just making utility actually make sense between forms. But I don't want to kind of stop in that point too much. Chat, I want you, we're going to be closing out soon. I want you, if you have any questions for the guests here today, please type them in chat now and at me so I can see that you're talking to me directly. If you have any questions, we'll go through as many as we can in a few minutes. But one thing I want to ask you guys, because it comes up all the time in my chat, and I'm actually, if I'm honest, I'm like, I'm sick to death of talking about it, but I know how important it is to a lot of people. People keep bringing up the fact that we probably aren't going to get invited to raid because we don't have Leader of the Pack or a unique raid buff. Same with Mythic Plus. PvP is a little bit different. But what do you guys think on a Feral specific buff, or just ways in which you could see us being more valuable? And I'll start by saying, for me, if they made Feral Druid the only ones to have 1 minute stampeding raw, I could see why that would make us a benefit and could reduce the amount of druids you need in a raid while still getting the same amount of utility, which allows you to bring something else to the raid. But also, it doesn't make us mandatory. That's my suggestion, but I want to hear what you guys think, and anyone jump in whenever you're ready.
Well,
I think that there's a couple of options. I don't necessarily think that Feral should have something that is unique to Feral, and that every Feral should be in a raid with. I think that's potentially problematic. Like, I'm not going to complain if they give it to me. I won't complain. Like, you can give it to me and I won't complain. But I think it is potentially problematic. What I think I would like to see as a solution is to give us one of the existing, like, raid buffs. Like, if you could bring a Feral instead of a Monk for the damage, physical damage, or something like that.
yeah, that would be nice. Because that would still... I think what you're hitting on is that Feral could use a unique buff that separates it from BUFFME. Because it doesn't need like a raid buff, a specific raid buff that makes it mandatory to have just a Feral. It just needs something that separates it from BUFFME, because you will always have this issue of buff-wise that you will never take a Feral if you can slot in a BUFFME instead. But yeah, like some form of Monk or DH debuff or buff would be kind of nice in a way that it's not really oppressive when it comes to setup planning, and it still separates us from BUFFMEs. So I like that actually.
Because I think Feral is in... I mean, this is somewhat the same with Enhanced. They have Wind Fury to make up for it. Feral's in a weird position whereby you're always competing with other melee for melee spots, but what you bring can just be bought by a ranged, is the problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Specifically BUFFME, would you say?
I mean, this would happen with any other melee if they also had a ranged spec attached, I think. For us, obviously,
survival?
it's specifically Boomkin. Yeah, like same for survival, yeah. And like for Windwalker, when Brewmaster is good. For, I mean, I'm not going to say Warriors because Warriors have Rally, spoiled bastards. Yeah, like it'll always happen when you're competing with both a melee and a ranged. And there's ways around it. I think the healthiest way is the way like Wrath or like Ward or like Mort, where you have multiple classes that bring the same buff. And they differentiate between specs so that you can fit stuff around, and it becomes more like an entertaining puzzle than what it is now.
Yeah. Snoopy, I'm gonna imagine you don't have anything to add onto this, as you already have Leader of the Pack, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Alright, cool.
I mean, I wouldn't mind leader baseline. Like, I'm gonna get one more on talent.
Yeah.
So-
Sure.
None of us are going to complain about baseline stuff, though.
Yeah.
Blessed.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, the thing for me against Leader of the Pack, I'm the same as you, Guilty. Like, I don't want it, but I won't complain if we get it. The reason I don't want it is because I don't look at this game from like a selfish, like, I want my spec to always be meta the best thing no matter what, and I don't care about any other spec. I think, does Feral getting Leader of the Pack make the game better or worse? And in my opinion, it just shifts our position to a different spec. And now it makes it harder for guilds because then they have to bring a Feral, and then you're bringing like 4 druids to a 20-man raid anyway, and then if you like have to bring a Feral, and I don't feel like it's really fair in the grand scheme of things. But I think if they can figure out ways where, I don't think it matters about bringing a Feral or like it's not, for me it's not about bringing a Feral. It's like, we need a druid DPS. that for me is where if people can just go, okay, Feral or BUFFME doesn't matter. If they could try and figure out a way for that to be the conversation, because you might not always want a Druid DPS, but when you do want a Druid DPS, it should be either one is perfect. The problem is BUFFME's always going to have the advantage of being ranged. So I don't know what they can do per se. I mean, I had that Stampeding Roar idea, but I don't know if that would actually work or not. It's just a theory. But I mean, is that... Yeah, I think that's where I'm kind of at, and obviously where you guys are at as well with like leader of the pack. And I don't know. I feel like it would just be shitty as well if we got leader of the pack and then we were just there as like a buff bot, and then we just feel shit anyway. So, and your whole raid would be memeing you as well. Yeah, you wouldn't care. I mean, your whole raid is gonna shit talk you anyway. So, I mean, not you specifically, but
my whole raid shit talked me all tier long just for being feral. But at some point, I just lost my raid spot. So, no, please shit talk me while I'm in the raid and killing bosses.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I think in a just and fair universe, having a buff would make your buff bot, but that is just not the universe we live in. You just have a buff, and then you are still as good as everyone else, is the reality of the situation.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I'll take a buff if they want one.
Yeah, sure.
Yes,
yeah, I mean, I'm not against, like, if we get it, cool, but I'm not going to be upset if we don't get it. Okay, cool. Anything else? I know we probably got, like, a couple more minutes here. We didn't really get many questions in chat. I mean, we got asked about like an affinity choice node, and I think that you guys seem to all be happy with the idea of getting like a 3-way affinity choice node from Ezekiel there. I think that would be a solid idea. But anything else that you guys wanted to bring up that we haven't yet covered?
Well, I want to just say that I completely 100% agree with your take on consistency. I think spells should work the exact same way across all specs. That also includes things like Rebirth, but also Star Search, costing AP, and also being able to be cast in human form because it's in front of Moonkin form.
Shut it off.
Jokes aside, I'm still a huge advocate for consistency. Yes, that definitely needs to happen, and I feel with Sunfire being able to be cast in human form, they already tried to create more consistency, and I think they should continue doing that. Yeah, that's all.
Cool. Anything from you, Guilty or Snoopy?
Nothing particular. I think I've addressed most of my points. If anyone in chat knows where to get fire infused hide on beta, please let me know. I'm going insane.
What is that?
Apart from that,
Hey, what?
It's a fucking crafting material, man. None of the vendors sell it.
Okay. All right. Well,
I can help
I have
you with
one
that.
very small thing.
yeah. Go
One
ahead,
small
Snoopy.
Hit me,
Just
Snoopy.
okay, because you grab swipe on the general tree,
Yeah.
and then when you get slash, swipe you can use some bear form and cat form. When you grab slash in the feral tree, you lose swipe. So therefore, you just don't have a bear form thing, which feels a bit bad. Like
That's
when
been
you
a-
go slash.
Oh wait, I hadn't even thought
That's
about
been a problem
that.
for a long time.
Yeah, so like maybe they could. This is the time
annoying.
to address that maybe.
Make
Oh
my
slash
God,
yeah.
replace swipe. And
Yeah, because I
done.
want to bear
And then-
weave.
But then you can't have swipe in bear form, which you still spec swipe, and then you don't have it in bear form, or just make slash, maybe slash usable in bear form. Who knows? But I don't know.
That is
it
something they
just
should
feels kind of
fix.
bad.
Yeah.
It's like a
I think
small
it's
thing
a tricky
that.
one.
Yeah. It's not like an easy solution to it, but I think it could be fixed with some.
There
some
are
brain power.
easy solutions to that. Yeah, multiple. You can separate bear swipe from cat swipe and
Yeah.
slash only replace
Yes,
cat
That's
swipe.
the easiest way to do it.
Yeah, you can brutal slash just not replace swipe. Just stop with that nonsense.
I don't think they want to do that.
Yes,
Why not, though?
probably, but still, like the cleanest and mechanically fine way would be to just separate swipe to bear swipe and
Yes,
cat swipe.
yes,
Yeah.
that's
that
Yeah.
should be
easiest
an
way to do it.
easy
Yeah.
change.
Yes.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
Cool. Anything else? Anything else? Final thoughts from anybody? All
Nope,
right.
nope,
Perfect.
I'm happy. Happy with the developer. Happy with the attention we're
Rework the
getting.
Druid tree and we're fine.
This is the most optimistic I've been about Feral going into an expansion, basically ever. I'm very excited.
Yeah, absolutely. BUFFME, were you gonna say something?
Yeah, I said it's great. It's awesome. Almost perfect. I'm happy.
Almost perfect. Excellent. Well, chat, that's gonna be it then. We're gonna close it out there. Bam. Hope you enjoyed this talk. And I think it was really good to sit down with everybody and have a little conversation. I'm sure we can probably do another one, guys, just before things actually go live or something. And maybe we can have more of a discussion from, like, you know, a standpoint of, like, what builds are going to be strong and what are we trying to achieve with our rotation. And maybe we could do something like that, which people might really, really appreciate. Because there's a lot of new stuff. I mean, we were looking at the single target earlier, and there's potentially, like, 5 different cooldowns you're going to be working with and maintaining and stuff, which sounds, you know, pretty cool. So maybe we can do something like that. But I want to take a moment to say thank you to Snoopy, Guilty, and Buff for all coming on. I really appreciate it. Everyone in chat, I really appreciate you guys all hanging out and being so kind and polite and everything to the guests as well. Guilty, I'm going to start with you, then Snoopy, then Buff. Do you want to just sign yourself out, dude? Let people know where they can see you, and any final words.
Yeah, as mentioned, you can find me on Wowhead. There's also a Twitter, but I'm absolutely not going to advertise my Twitter. I am unhinged. As always, it's always good to talk about Feral. I've got posts on forums. I'm sure I'll have more posts on forums with more of my thoughts. I play it this week. Hope you enjoyed listening. And thanks. Thanks for having us.
For sure. Snoopy, what about you, my man?
Yeah, you can find me on twitch.tv/Snoopy. And yeah, thanks for hosting. It was fun. And thanks for, you know, having a PPR on.
Of course.
Nice.
Of course. Well, you know, Snoopy, you were doing some dungeons earlier, man. You might
Dude,
just be a
I tried. It didn't pop.
after all. Oh, really?
It did not pop, man. So we gave up. Yeah.
Oh, unlucky.
But, yeah. But we tried doing it, so it still counts.
It counts. It counts.
It counts. Right, perfect. And then what about you, Buff?
Yeah, first of all, yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for hosting. It was really nice. For everyone in here, you cannot find me on Twitch. You cannot find me on Twitter or any other form of social media. So, yeah, that's...
Or Discord.
That sounds like a challenge.
Add him on Discord.
So, yeah, that's it.
Alright, but you guys can download the Talent Tree Manager. If you go on GitHub and you search Talent Tree Manager, you can do that. This is a tool made by BUFFME. It has all the specs and classes trees on. So make sure you check that out as well. Don't worry, BUFFME, I got you for you. And yeah.
Man.
Alright, well guys, Guilty, Snoopy, BUFFME, you guys have a great evening. Enjoy playing Feral on beta. Also, make sure you guys go check out Boomkin. It's poppin' and boppin' right now. Wait, this is the old tree. Go check out Boomy on beta. It's poppin', it's boppin', it's sick as fuck. You're gonna have a little dragon flying around and shit. There's a mushroom in there somewhere. Really cool. Alright, cool. You guys have a great night, yeah?
Thank you, man.
Yeah.